What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We got the whole squad here today. And we're here to talk post-finals. I mean, we're going to get into it, but if you're living under a rock, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Bruce Brown, they did it. But before we get into that, boys, how we doing? We got the whole squad with us today.
Yes, sir. Frick, man. Yo, I had the worst experience before. That's not gonna lie to you guys. After work, I dropped by that new T&T near IKEA, that big one, and I went to go get some food, for the hot food section. And bruh, I ate it. I was like, man, this is good. 20 minutes later, I'm freaking puking, bro.
Oh, no.
No way.
Yo, it's nasty, bro.
Dang.
That food was for sure sitting there for like at least 2 or 3 hours, like straight stale.
That's
I
tough.
thought it was good. I was just so hungry, man. But you know,
Oh, that sucks because the TNT, the hot food, it be hitting sometimes.
it be hitting sometimes. That's what I mean. Like sometimes is the
That
key word.
have you ever tried the brisket?
Yo, the brisket's
that
fire,
brisket
dog.
slaps.
But the new TNT has a lot of options.
A lot of different
It's
ones.
got some good stuff. Yeah,
I gotta
solid.
peep that. But before Christian, congratulations, man got his big D today.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
Got
hey,
graduated.
Hell yeah!
congrats.
Oh yeah, that's the only way to react. But let's get right into it, y'all. So I think we'll approach it like this. Well, obviously we're gonna talk about the finals, but we're also gonna talk about Miami and how they can retool, potentially gear up for another run, hit up some rumors, and we also got another coaching hire to go over. But we'll get into that in a bit. First of all, though, let's get into the game. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I thought it was an underwhelming ending, but an ending nonetheless. You know, I think it just proved what happened throughout the entire series, and it's that I think Denver was just a better team all throughout, and I think there were times where there were a little bit of lapses on the Nuggets end, but Miami, I don't think was never really able to fully capitalize on that. And I think this game was a big indicator to that, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how y'all feel, but it just seemed like the way the teams were shooting, how poor the Nuggets were offensively at times. It just felt like this was a game that Miami should have taken. But yeah, just to bring it over to y'all, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think like the game was. I think it's just one of those things. Like, I think that game was a perfect reflection of Miami just not having enough talent. I just think like they just didn't have enough to close it out, right? Like, and Denver, they were down. How much were they down by going into the second half? It was less than double digits, no?
Yeah, it was
It was like
maybe
7
9
or
or
9.
8 points.
So it wasn't a big lead. And when I knew that at least if Miami could push it to a double digit lead, they'd go in comfortably opening up the third. But the Nuggets had cut it into single digits, and I was like, yeah, I just don't think there's going to be enough there. And Jimmy had played pretty bad up until the fourth quarter, and like
Yeah.
Jimmy's been really good, like in the playoffs, where he's like, well, he can just turn it on in the fourth. But I think Denver had just had way too much.
Yeah. And I think it comes down, like, I'm not saying the Heat don't have the experience per se that like Nuggets don't, but in a lot of ways the Nuggets just have a lot of tenured players that like know what it really takes to close out, finish games day in and day out, right? Like even if you have a player like Aaron Gordon who hasn't obviously seen the playoff like finals, he's like an example of a player who's been around the league now for a good amount of time.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and when you look at the Miami Heat roster, knowing that like more than 40% of it is undrafted players, that like a lot of them which are like relatively new to the league itself still too. I mean, it just comes down to experience, and it's not Jokic's first rodeo. It's not Jamal Murray's first rodeo. It's certainly not KCP's first rodeo. Like, I think that's just what it came down to a lot of the time. Is just like
Yeah.
getting it done, executing.
100%. KCP got more rings than Anthony Davis. But no, I think the way I kind of encapsulated was that sorry.
Facts though. Facts,
True.
though.
Yeah,
Ball
it's
don't
not
lie.
wrong, but
Ball don't lie. But no, getting back on track, I think when you looked at it, the Nuggets, not only did Jokic and Jamal Murray never really have too slow of a day, except, you know, Jamal had a few struggles here and there, but they had a lot of really big moments from their role players. And when you look to Miami,
Yeah.
there wasn't like a, I mean, there was that one, I think it was game 2 or 3 where Max Struess like hit all his shots except the fourth quarter or whatever it was. But you look to Christian Braun in game 3. I think he's a big reason they won that game. Aaron Gordon
Yeah.
in game 4, 3 threes is incredible for coming from a guy like that. And when you just look to Miami, a big reason they were there in the first place was because of those kind of guys. You know, you had Max Struess catching heat. Duncan Robinson had like 8 points in that fourth quarter, and was it game 6 or 7 for in the Miami and Boston series. And when it came to the finals, I think yeah, talent was a big thing, but more than anything, I think they just gassed out. You know, I think they got
Mhm.
what they could out of the team. It's a finals appearance, but you don't have that last bit of pizzazz to really get you over the top. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I'll say it right here. Denver's just getting started. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they win 2 to 3 chips in the next 5 to 7 years. Because I mean, one,
Yeah.
their whole core is under contract for the most part. You know, Jamal Murray, MPJ, Jokic, of course. And then I think we all agree that the center is a position where you can age gracefully in a sense, especially with a guy like Jokic, whose game isn't necessarily predicated on any athleticism at all. Like, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I think age like 35, 36 Jokic is still gonna be like mwah. I think it's gonna be chef's kiss, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you can liken him to Tim Duncan a little bit because
Mm.
Timmy's game wasn't like predicated on athleticism. I think you brought up such a good point about like Denver's team. Like I think they are just getting started. You know, Bruce Brown was so important to them, and he's probably not going to stay with Denver just because they can't afford him and they don't have his bird rights, and he's probably going to get a bag this
Oh
summer.
yeah.
So whatever team gets Bruce Brown is going to be awesome. But like he also fit perfectly for that system. So he'd be a huge loss, but at the end of the day, like the fact that they had Christian Brown who had that kind of rookie season, I mean, you can certainly see him potentially you know fulfill that role that Bruce Brown did
Good
at a
point.
higher level too, right? So I mean he had some really good minutes and really good moments this series, or I mean all season long, but obviously the series he was really good as well. So and Denver has, I mean if you really look at it too, like over the years they've had a pretty good track record with developing players. I mean Jamal and Jokic,
Mhm.
MPJ obviously, those are like your key guys. But even if you go all the way back, you know, to the time where, you know, the Ty Lawsons and the Kenneth Fareeds of the world, and
Will
then you
Barton.
know you see the Will Barton, yeah. So I mean, like they've had some really good projects, right, that have panned out really well. So yeah, I think Denver's just getting started. I just want to give flowers to Miami though, because like if you look at their run, they got through Giannis, they got through Joel and the Sixers. Oh, sorry.
Uh,
They got through.
they went through the Knicks.
Uh, they went through the Knicks, and then they got through Boston and Jason Tatum. Obviously the Jays. I mean, that's a for them to get to the finals. I know. Sorry, Christian. For them to get to the finals as an 8 seed. Remember losing their first game in the play-in tournament, and then getting through the caliber of players and teams that they did in the playoffs, and they just kind of burnt out in the finals. I mean, I don't blame them for burning out because we already knew like they didn't have the talent pool, you know, to push them to a championship. I mean, I don't know anyone that was actually seriously took Miami to win the series.
Yeah, I think only if you're really like a completely delusional homer, respectfully.
Yeah, and and you know, so it wasn't a shocker that Denver won in 5. I mean, we had conversations this year, myself included, saying that Miami should have blown it up.
We
So
did.
remember, like I said that multiple
I think a
times,
lot
and
that
then they
was kind of
managed.
the major discourse, especially heading into like this play-in tournament.
Yeah, 100%. And they managed to figure out. But if you really look at it too, like the record wasn't even all that bad this year. So the East was just deep. Anyways, that's all to say that um, Denver's just getting started. I think Miami needs to retool significantly, and we're going to talk about it later. But yeah, this series was pretty much like the nail in the coffin that Denver was easily the best team this year.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
Miami has a huge talent gap, but number two things carried them is Coach Spo, his game plan, and number two, I think just their culture and their stars buying into that culture, which is Bam and Jimmy. And Bam had a really good game 5 too. So I mean, sometimes just not enough.
100%. Chin, you got anything to add?
No, not really, to be honest.
Just one little thing I want to touch on. I want to give some flowers to Jamal Murray because I mean, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the whole story of he thought he was damaged goods. He thought, well, even the ownership kind of wanted to move on from him, but Michael Malone really had his back. And just look at like the past few years, because I mean, when the core's been healthy, we've seen it's led to like one conference finals appearance, and then two like deep runs to an extent to the second round or whatever it may be.
Yep.
And I think it's always been a matter of when, not if, this team was really going to reach that peak. And you know, we've seen what happens when it's fully, you know, all wheels go. I mean, last year people were like speaking down on Jokic for having to play against the Golden State Warriors, the eventual NBA champions, with Facundo Campazzo in his lineup and Austin Rivers.
Yep.
So I think just to see how Jamal Murray is really upped his ante is great to see. One, obviously the Canadian bias, no doubt about that. But then two, just the whole genesis of him as a person, you know. We're the things that, I'm not gonna lie, if Jamal Murray didn't make the league, his dad might be yeah, you know what I'm saying? But this is all to say that Jamal Murray, it was a great story. I'm so excited to see what he brings to the Nuggets for the foreseeable future. And whew, I'm excited for the World Cup because I'm really hoping he's bringing that momentum into
that's
the
2
Asia.
years worth of that's 2 years worth of redemption stories, eh? Clay and now Jamal. So cool stuff.
No doubt. All right, before we kick off into the, you know, the Miami bits, I got a few little well, these are definitely gonna be little TikTok segments, but all right, Jokic ranking all time amongst centers. So it's not necessarily we're gonna debate or whatever. I'm just gonna throw out a name, and you know, you say if you're taking the other guy or Jokic. Ready?
Okay.
Kareem. Well, that's obvious, right? Kareem, yeah.
Kareem.
Wilt.
At this moment, just at this moment, like
Ruben
for the
looks like...
foreseeable future, I could definitely put Jokic over Wilt. But as of right now, I still think, you know, accolades and like just overall segment, I think you saw to take Wilt.
Ruben, what you thinking there, brother?
I totally get why Chen goes that route. I take Kareem because I think he's played the closest to NBA level competition, but Wilt played against firemen. So I mean, I'm gonna.
If we're talking like, if this is like on the blacktop, you know, if we're talking blacktop, like I'll take Jokic over Kareem.
No, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. If it's blacktop, I think Wilt is dogging Jokic. Respectfully.
Wilt is like 7 feet and like just pure cut and
but what I mean by just like skill and like what you would take him like just as like a player at face value, you know, not like one. I'm not talking one-on-one, but I'm talking just as a player. Like if you're talking about how good they are as players, obviously, I'd probably take as like in terms of skill and who I think is the best. I'd take Jokic over both those players.
I'll put it like this: if I need a bucket, I'm going to Wilt, but if I need a win, I'm going to Jokic.
I like that answer. So if I like prolonged that answer. I'm going Jokic.
Okay. Bill Russell. I think that, you know, 11, 12 rings. That's pretty
you gotta take Bill Russell. That's just kind of respect at that point. That's like respect.
Yeah. Shaq. I think, you know, 4 rings.
Shaq,
right? Hakeem.
Hakeem was pretty special.
No, Hakeem for sure, bro.
Hakeem still?
Yeah, Hakeem.
Moses Malone.
Jokic.
Oh, really? 3 MVPs, multiple All-Stars. Okay, I respect it. David Robinson.
I mean, that's a hard one. What does he have? 2, 3?
I think
3 rings?
he's got one MVP. I think 2 rings.
Oh man,
2
this is
rings.
our criteria is changing every player because like
I know, I know.
but I get it though because it's like they all
You have
have
to
different
consider
accolades.
both.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you have to consider both. So it's like, okay, if it's like their accolades are around the same place, then who
Yeah.
are you taking as a player if you look at their skill level and their ability to win? And it's like,
Yeah.
damn, that's a hard one because Jokic is a 2-time MVP and he's done things that no one's ever done before.
Mhm.
So that's why Jokic is even in this conversation because it's like, bro, who the hell has like, what did he average in the playoffs? 13, 30, 14, and 7 or something like that?
30, 14,
I think
and
that.
Oh, I'm sorry,
9.
in the finals?
In the
Or
finals,
Well,
it was
no,
like
the whole playoff run I think is 30, 14, and 9. I just looked at it earlier.
I think I think in the finals it was like something like 30, 13, and 7. Pretty sure, like in the final series
I
specifically.
think
Like,
game
who
2
else
was
has done
probably the one
that?
that did that.
And
Yeah.
wait, and he lead? Wasn't he a leader in total points, rebounds, and assists?
Yeah,
He was a
I saw that.
total. Hey,
God
that's
damn.
insane, bro. First, that's insane. I don't know, man. That's a hard question. I'm gonna take Jokic. I'm gonna be spicy.
Who are we comparing him to again?
David Robinson.
David Robinson.
I think in this scenario I could take Jokic.
Mm. Patrick
Yeah.
Ewing.
Come on.
Okay, that was a little.
That's like
George Mikan.
Brad Miller.
Yeah, you know, all respect to George Mikan, but I'm not gonna lie. If there's any era I don't really respect, it's pre equality. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
when he dribbled like this, man.
Oh my goodness. Bill Walton.
Jokic.
Jokic. So what we're saying right now is that Jokic is like what? Top 5, top
10.
6, top 6 center in that round?
He's at least top 5, top 6. I mean,
Yeah, like
I think he's
you could
gonna
definitely
win.
put him in that.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's gonna win at least one more MVP.
Oh, and I mean, we can all agree it should have been 3 in a row. None of that
It should have been.
pity bullshit.
Yeah, if Joel didn't go on a crying run.
Hey, you know,
All right.
one
Question to
MVP,
that though.
one more chip.
Wait, Chin, what are you saying?
I'm just saying, like, sub question to that is that Embiid's last MVP?
Yes,
In my opinion, I think it is.
100%.
Yeah, 100% it is.
Yeah,
Unless Embiid goes on like
an absolute
he
tear.
needs to put up like 35, 13, and like 2 assists, 3 blocks, like something insane like that.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen numbers like that since Shaq. So it's like,
True.
especially without the assist numbers. So I mean, if you're talking about box score production, like there's nobody coming close to
Jokic
and
is
Giannis.
unfuckwithable there.
And Giannis too. Like Giannis is incredible. But I mean, if you look at it from a fantasy perspective, Joel was technically the best fantasy player last year.
Yeah, when he was
second
available.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, anyways,
So what we concluded is that Jokic is in that realm of borderline top 5 for sure, top 6 or 7, and I totally agree with that. Yeah,
yeah. But what about Jakob Poeltl?
it's tough, you know. Two European beasts, one first round pick, the other got picked during a Taco Bell commercial. Tough, but I might have to lean Jokic there. Y'all, who y'all taking? Jokic or college Frank Kaminsky?
Probably Serge Ibaka.
Ooh, I respect
Yeah,
it.
2019 Serge Ibaka.
Yeah, yo, that was crazy. That was crazy, man.
All right. Okay, moving on. Let's look at where the Nuggets' entire run. So, not just the finals, but that whole entire playoff run. Where does it rank amongst these last few runs? So let's start here. 2022 Warriors.
I would have to say it ranks higher than the Warriors.
Mm.
I would have to say because of the amount of parity in the league this year. I mean, that's just my opinion. And also, they had to get through Minnesota, which was an okay team. and then they had to get through Phoenix,
Phoenix, which was a dog
um,
fight.
which, which was a dogfight, but they were also a lot of people didn't pick them to win that series against Phoenix. Um, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, but like the disrespect ran crazy in that series, and then everybody took LA over Denver, and we talked about like, oh man, who the hell's gonna guard AD, bro? Who the hell was gonna guard Jokic? What
Not
the
AD.
frick?
Not AD for
Not
sure.
AD.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think in terms of the competition that they had to get through, obviously in these finals as well, um, I think I'd have to give this one to the Nuggets.
I respect that. 2021 Bucks.
Oh, the Bucks.
Bucks. The Bucks had to play the Nets, right? They had to play.
Yeah, that was an insane series. One of the
Who else
greatest.
did they, who else did they play? I'm trying to remember this right now.
That started, they swept Miami. They went to
Right,
7 with the
Miami.
Nets. Went to 6 with the
Yes.
Hawks. Or was it?
The
It was
Hawks.
6 with the Hawks. And then obviously 6 with the Suns.
But that Suns team was insane. That
Mm,
Suns team was pretty
that
insane.
was the
Yeah,
Devin
I
Booker
would take the
dropped
Bucks.
240 pieces in that. Mm,
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I would take the Bucks there.
2020 Lakers.
No,
I got the Nuggets.
I got the Nuggets on that
hell
one.
yeah. 2019
easy.
Raptors.
Yeah, I got
Ooh.
the Raptors. I got the Raptors.
Here, I'm trying to remember. All I remember is Philly.
See,
They had Philly,
that's the thing.
Milwaukee,
And when
and
you have,
Orlando.
yeah,
Oh,
that because
Milwaukee
the Raptors
too.
were like the first team that like completely stifled Giannis,
That is true.
like completely made him
Well,
like Rudy
mean-
Gobert level unusable.
I think the Raptors remind me so much of what the Nuggets have, where every piece fit, where they had 9, 10 guys deep that can contribute. But I think the biggest difference on this Raptors, on the 19 Raptors team, is hindsight's 2020, right? How many All Stars does that team have now? Kyle, Kawhi, Pascal, Mark, Fred. That's 5 All Stars. So, I mean, in terms of talent, I think all time Kawhi is still up there. And then we can't forget about Marc Gasol at the center position and how good he was at defending Joel. Like Joel was terrible that series, and the wall and how important that he was to that. So I'm going to take the Raptors.
Like that. I mean, when you look at it, the Raptors had the moments. They had a solid roster, and yeah, I like that. I like that wording. But 2011 Mavs.
Ooh,
Nah, I still take the 2011
I
Mavs.
think that's still
Yeah.
that's still up there.
That's still the in my opinion the greatest run of all time.
you guys know that team, like, well, they were plus 40 or something like that with Jason Terry on the floor.
Didn't they
Like,
sweep
Jason Terry,
They swept Kobe, didn't
Like-
they, that year?
yeah. Dude, they had that run was insane, man. Jason Terry was on one.
Hey man, when you
Beating prime Kobe and prime LeBron alone.
oh yeah, when you get a tattoo of the chip before you win the chip,
That's
you-
insane. Yeah,
Oh, crazy.
that's insane.
But yeah, I think overall this run itself, I think when you look at it in totality, I don't know if it necessarily ranks high, but if we look at it from an individual aspect, I think Jokic is like, because you're considering this is like his first finals run too, I think it's definitely up there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And Jamal's performance
Oh,
was
yeah.
crazy.
20 and 10 in the
you
finals
give
is
him flowers
insane.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just proves a lot of people wrong. I think this team is, and myself included, I can't like be like, oh yeah, Denver had this shit in the bag all year. Like they're just not a team. Like when you look at them, that has that NBA aesthetic value. Like they're not the
Yeah.
biggest market. They're not the biggest market. They don't have the biggest names. Like Jokic is obviously one of the biggest names in basketball, but up until this point, he was just like amongst the superstars. He wasn't a LeBron James. He wasn't a Giannis. And it's because he just didn't have the chip. But now everyone will go into the next season knowing this team is actually like that, which is, I think, a really positive thing.
And like we said, I mean, they're deep. They're going to be able to, obviously you don't want Bruce Brown to go, but I think they'd be okay.
That team was deep as is too. If you think about it, like Thomas Bryant, Reggie Jackson,
Yeah.
like that team had some solid rotation players.
Vlaco Kanchar.
Yeah, man. Freaking man.
Ish Smith.
DeAndre Jordan, Ish Smith.
Ooh.
Jeff
DeAndre
Green,
Jordan
like, he played
averaged
well,
5 daps, 4
played
Gatorade
in the-
handouts.
I'm glad he played in the 5th game though.
True. True. Hey, DeAndre Jordan, NBA champion for Lob City right there.
Yes, sir.
All right, now let's talk about Miami. Cinderella run, no doubt. They have a solid team, fully healthy, but it wasn't necessarily enough to get them over the hump. So I'm just asking a simple question: where do you go from here? Whether it's moves, any kind of transactions or anything.
They're gonna look to move. I think they're good. Clearly, I was wrong that they're good enough to compete, especially in today's like balance of parity and stuff like that. I definitely think we talked about this. I think Bradley Beal is good. It's with the rumors coming out, obviously, that they're reportedly looking for trade scenarios for him. There's also Damian Lillard, who it seems like he's about to leave if that pick isn't dealt. And they do have some assets to trade. Obviously, it means a guy like Kyle Lowry, potentially Tyler Hero, getting shipped out and potentially any of their draft capital. But I think you kind of have to. You have a small window, so it's either you blow it up or you got to go all in. And clearly, this team, as is, against this current status of the NBA, is good enough to get to the finals. So, I mean, there has to be some sort of separation here, and that clearly means like I think they need a third guy because Jimmy can't do everything. Obviously, he's a very passive guy as well. Bam Adebayo, same thing. He's more of a playmaker than he is a scorer. So, yeah, I think they got to look to make a big swing, or they got to blow it up.
No doubt. My question I want to ask y'all: do you guys think Duncan Robinson has recouped enough value to be like, even to get some kind of like rotational piece back?
I think he is maybe worth like a late first round pick. I don't know if he's like worth the face value of another good role player in the NBA, if that makes sense. Like, I would not trade him, like, say if he was in a package even for a Jordan Clarkson, for example. Obviously, that's like an anomaly. Jordan Clarkson is
that'd be highway robber.
But like, I would say he's on the level of any other role player in the NBA, really.
Yeah,
I think if they want any kind of flexibility, they definitely, Duncan's a great story. Came up Division III through the Heat and whatnot, made himself a lot of money. But I think it's clear that contract needs to be dealt, and I'm in the party of I think he's definitely increased his value to where it's something worth. But yeah, some things I had to add on to that. I think with this 18th pick, they really need somebody that can create their own shot. I think that's a big thing with this Miami offense, to where, Tyler Hero is another guy that's able to create on multiple levels, but obviously you didn't have him for that run. So when you looked at it, it was really only Jimmy to an extent and Kyle Lowry in spurts. And even that's like, I'm a little hesitant to say that. But when you look at like the mock drafts and stuff like that, they got guys like Kobe Burfkin from Michigan, who's supposed to be in that range. Nick Smith Jr., a guy who was supposed to be higher, but obviously had his year. Jet Howard, I think, would be a nice little storyline, considering that he's Juwan's son. He's able to shoot the ball in like that. But I think you just need another guy to really help lessen the stagnation of offense. Because, I think Christian and I touched on this last episode. Every team's trying to be the Warriors in the sense of they got maybe one or two guys, and then everybody else just catch and shoots. And that's great and all, but unless the shots are falling, it's very inefficient offense to an extent. And I think that's when you need guys who can have an in-between game. Those three are the guys I think could be in that. But I think, you need a scorer. Another thing I think is they need to get some size, a true center. If you're able to pry a guy like Brook Lopez, that would be nice. And I think that's their main thing there, because Bam, as great as he is, he's almost he does his job as on the defensive end, but it's almost too much in the sense that you're expecting him to guard the point of attack, you're expecting him to switch off, you're expecting him to anchor the defense. There's a lot of things that you're expecting him to do, and I think just getting a guy that can help alleviate some of that stress would be a big help. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they probably trade that 18th pick. I think they use that to address some of their needs, which is obviously size, um, shot creation. I mean, I think if this team still wants to win, I think that 18th pick becomes trade value for a role player, and or it's an incentive on top of a deal for one of the bigger names I mentioned. So I think you know what I think the size thing is really important, especially because you look at how this team struggled against Jokic, right? And so they're going to be the way they are evaluated next year is based on their team and how they were able to, and the way they performed last year, obviously. So it's like if this team doesn't address the needs against a team like Denver, like did they get better, right? Matchups might change. Denver might not even get to the finals again next year, and same thing with Miami. They're probably not going to get to the finals next year. So I think they close that gap if they add more talent, and then followed by some size to address at least defensively, where you can move Bam into a forward position because they clearly got outsized. And I don't even know if it's Jokic necessarily. I think it's just the fact that Denver is an anomaly with two 6'10" guys on the perimeter, and their center's 7 feet tall. But their two 6'10" perimeter guys are able to create shots, defend at a high position, and also shoot the ball, right? And so I think they got to address their size, whether it's on the inside or on the perimeter too.
100%. Anything to add, Chin?
No, I would just double down on the fact that I think they probably do need that third guy. I think when you look at their lineup, there's depth, but I also think there's not like it's not good depth, if that makes sense. Like they have players that I think they could leverage into acquiring better players. Like realistically, you don't want Kevin Love in that starting five. I think Kyle
Yeah.
Lowry at this point is someone you need to deal off for something. And yeah, Duncan Robinson, Haywood Highsmith really showed a lot of potential throughout the whole season for the most part, and I think that's someone you develop.
Yeah.
And yeah, even looking even farther into their depth chart, like you have someone like Omer Yurtseven who
Oh
like probably
man,
has some
Omer
value.
Yurtseven was a fantasy demon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have Victor Oladipo. Like I think they just have things they can deal off to really elevate their lineup. Like I don't know if it's Bradley Beal. I personally think you look for maybe even a point guard and play Gabe Vincent as a six man. I personally don't know if he is like the starting point guard for this team because I think Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo can kind of handle like the 3 through 5 sort of like star player roles. But I do agree, like, and one thing that I would like to see them do is have, someone that supports Bam at the same time, someone that
Yep.
can kind of be like how, and this isn't the best example, but kind of how the Boston Celtics have like a kind of rotational thing going on between Al Horford and like Time Lord, for example, where sometimes they play together like in a 4-and-5 basis, and sometimes someone plays the 5 alone. Like I think they just need a center, someone who can play the 4 through 5 and support Bam Adebayo, so that if they need to like, obviously adjust for matchups like Jokic for Embiid, someone like they actually have that. Just because if you have, for example, Bam guarding Jokic, but then you have to worry about Aaron Gordon, you don't want Kevin Love fucking guarding Aaron Gordon, like that's just
Those
that's not
cookies.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'd be all that I'd like to see them do.
Yeah. We'll see if they'll actually make some moves. I
Agree
think
with
they've
those.
been a little underwhelming when it comes to the offseason the past few years. But, I think if you want to capitalize on the little window you have left, then yeah, I think you leverage a lot of the future and the assets that you can. But heading from there, out of finals talk, the offseason is upon us, y'all. We've already seen it happen like the past little bit. The Nuggets did a little trade. We got a lot of stuff to get onto, but let's start here. The Pelicans looking to trade to either 2 or 3. We'll say how we feeling about this, and maybe we'll go into potential moves as well. But yeah, let's start with Chin, man. How you feel about the Pelicans if they were to do something like this, and then, what do you think the framework of a trade looks like?
So, I mean, I only know very like surface level stuff about the draft coming up, but I would say I like based on them wanting the 2 or 3 pick, they obviously see like instant starter potential in someone like Scoot Henderson. And that would allow CJ, for example, if they were to make this hypothetical trade to move to his natural 2 position, which keep in mind he didn't play terribly at the 1. Um, I could see
It's
them
not a
just
natural
doing that.
playmaker.
Yeah, he's not a natural playmaker. I could see them doing it and it working for what they're looking for, basically.
Mhm.
Um, but to say that's a good idea, I think it's a bit of a gamble, honestly. Like I mean, at a good portion of the season, they were number 1 in the West, and they just fell off due to like injuries from their 2 best players. So I think trying to trade up to that pick is kind of detrimental to the process that they're trying to create there. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree
man.
with that too. Like detrimental for sure because like they already have some really good young talent. Like we've talked about this before: Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels, and then obviously you've got your key players like Bi, CJ, Zion. um, I have a strange feeling though that if it's for the 2 or 3, that I know people were saying that Houston or Charlotte would obviously want. I mean, this Charlotte wanted the moon and the stars and something like that, and then Houston wanted Zion. Um, but if if um if a team was looking to give up their second and third, I'd think really hard about like if I got a package of Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels and Trey Murphy back, man, that's a pretty special package. You know what I mean? Like those are 3 really solid young players with very like clear potential, like really high floors and high ceilings. So I think it's worth looking into. I don't know. Charlotte's also dumb because I've heard so many rumors that they're going to take Brandon Miller, and I don't know if they're leaking that as a joke or if somebody's putting that out there so that they can maybe convince
I've
Charlotte
heard
not
this
to
too.
take. Yeah, convince
I
them
feel
not to
I feel
take
like they're
Scoot.
set on
But
Brandon Miller because
that's what I'm saying.
I
It's like
think the
that's the
thing is
dumbest thing you
like,
can do.
really, I like female.
I like him too, but Scoot is he would be the number 1 pick in any other draft.
True,
Yeah, he's the
true.
consensus for sure.
So I mean, I just got to put it that way. Obviously, if Charlotte drafts for fit rather than talent, considering they already have Lamelo, I feel like it's going to be another draft where Charlotte clearly drafts wrong. I don't know.
I mean, do y'all think a backcourt of Lamelo and Scoot can even really work?
I think so.
I think so, and I think you just draft the best and you figure it out later. I think I've always kind of
Okay.
just had that
Yeah.
philosophy.
It's
Yeah,
not
I can
like
see that.
LaMelo. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, yeah, I can see that because I mean, the only real instance where I think you prioritize fit over potential in the last few years was Keegan Murray. And that was
Yeah,
obviously not the second or third pick. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like New Orleans is more set. I feel like 3 is a lot more potential than it comes to 2 because when you're looking at the Charlotte Hornets, you don't really have the luxury of being able to be like, okay, we can trade this one really good piece for a few solid pieces. I think you really need to start building. You need to give LaMelo a running mate because James Bouknight cooked. Miles Bridges potentially back. We don't know how good he's going to be. PJ Washington's still a big player in the rotation who I think is solid, but I'm not really writing home if I'm relying on that guy. But when it comes to 3, if Dame doesn't want to cheat himself out the grind, I think that's the most realistic point of view. And I don't know. I like Ruben. I like the idea of your package, but I feel like you're only looking for 2 or 3 if you're looking to also move off of one of your guys, like the big fish.
Oh yeah,
I think BI is probably the
absolutely.
biggest candidate. I don't know if a lot of teams are willing to take the swing on Zion because it's like, on the one end, you have arguably the most dominant player physicality wise since Shaq. And then on the other hand, you have the guy who's out doing his thing. So not only
I think
that,
you do take the chance on him.
really, I'm not gonna lie. I would take BI and a couple rotational players over, because I think if it's just a pick, that's probably the only thing you get. But if I'm the Blazers, I think you need to build out the roster a little more as well. And I think something like along the lines of, you know, BI and Herb seems a little much, but if it's something along those lines, that'd be amazing. And when you look at the construction of the Pelicans, I think Trey Murphy is the one that's really looking like he can slot right into where BI is at and they'd be okay. Because you saw like in the spot minutes where he was starting, even if it was alongside BI, he was really able to hold his own. So like I think 3 is the more realistic one. I think 2's just maybe a bit like if the Hornets are stupid, they do it. But I see 3 being more attainable.
Three's definitely more attainable, and I think the package is obviously what you mentioned: Bi plus pieces, probably Bi and a Trey Murphy or Bi and a Herb Jones, because I think that matches that matches more of the framework that the Trailblazers would be willing to deal number 3 with, considering if they want to keep Dame, they need a running mate and they need a guy who can defend. I think Herb Jones and Bi and whatever pieces are going to fit that. I think if you're Charlotte, if they do trade the number 2 pick, I think it's only got to be Zion.
I can see that.
Right? Right? I think it's only got to be Zion. In order for them to trade that number 2 pick. And I think that'd be a team that'd be willing to take a risk, because can you imagine pairing LaMelo with Zion? Now that is a hell of a duo.
That would be a dream.
Insane.
Zion's
Man.
mom would probably move in with him. He'd get him right. The corn stars would go away and he'd be back to hooping.
The corn stars. Mariah. Shout out Mariah. He went to page 128 on the Corn Hub. Yo, you see that picture on Twitter though? Y'all see that? He's like, oh, where's Zion's looking for his girls? It's like page 128 Corn Hub.
My
the
goodness.
page anyways, but
yeah, I like that. I like that. That's a good point. I think 2 is definitely that's only attainable if you're willing to throw Zion, I think. But let's move on to this next one. So Bradley Beal trade on the horizon. Now everybody knows Bradley Beal's in, I think, the second year of a $250,000 contract. Not only that, he's the only player in the NBA with a no trade clause. So as much as I think teams might actually no team's really going to be like in a big rush to get him, he definitely has some say. So instead of just throwing out trades, I saw an article. I'm gonna throw out these trades and we can look at it from both ends. How does it make the Wizards and how does it make the other team? Let's start with the one we were talking about earlier, the Heat. So the deal here: Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, and a 2027 first round pick for Bradley Beal and Monte Morris.
Great for Miami. Terrible for Washington if they can't get the number 18 this year too. I say they got to get 2 first round picks in that deal. I think Kyle is expiring this year, and Tyler Hero is their young talent, so it's not a bad trade. I think if they don't have 18, I think that's a wash.
I can see that. Yeah, I think adding in that last pick is definitely something that you'd look into, especially for somebody like Bradley Beal, who is like, Well, do y'all think Bradley Beal ranks higher than John Wall all time, like Wizard wise?
Yes.
Maybe only because he's been there that long.
Yeah, the tenure. Just really longevity. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Not as like a player though. I wouldn't really put him.
When John Wall was healthy, man.
Yeah, John Wall.
Gracious, dude.
John Wall was him, bro.
Blue blue jersey John Wall. Whew.
Gang sign John Wall.
Oh, gang sign John Wall was a that man was hooping.
That man was hooping. Come on, blood.
But yeah, I like the
Yeah.
idea of this trade. I mean, definitely moves the timeline a bit back for the Wizards, which is I think a good thing. Get a guy like Tyler Hero who you're able to kind of let him have more free reign on the court, which I think could be a good thing. And then on the other side, you're getting a guy like Bradley Beal. You know, as much as people want to say he's an overpay, when we're looking at it just basketball wise, Bradley Beal's a bucket. He's able to get to his spots. He's a decent 3-point shooter, has a slight bit of playmaking. And I think the real thing here that helps to sweeten the pot is Monte Morris. Whether you're starting him or Gabe Vincent, you're getting a super duper quality like point guard, I think. So I could see it, but yeah, I agree with Ruben that you'd probably have to add one more pick just to like get it over the hump. Alrighty, next one. Ruben's gonna like this one. RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, and a 2024 first round pick for Bradley Beal. How we feeling?
The Knicks would definitely do it. I'm saying Washington definitely wins that trade. I
Really?
definitely think Washington wins that trade because RJ Barrett obviously is a young player. He's got a lot of room to develop and grow. And that 2024 first round pick, I think New York will still be competitive by next year, obviously. But you know, draft capital and a young player back who has a lot of potential, and he had a really good playoff run too. Let's not forget
Yeah.
that. So, I think it's a solid trade. Evan Fournier, big time player.
Hooping.
It's good. It's a good trade for New York too.
What do you think, Chen?
I'm trying to think. I think the winner of that trade ultimately would be the Wizards as well. I don't think like what I feel is Bradley Beal is an overrated player. I just think he doesn't contribute like as much to a team, like if he were to be moved as much as people think he would. Like I don't think he's instant
You-
like
You know, he's not like
championship.
a crazy needle mover.
Like
Yeah, I was
in
literally
my
just gonna
Yeah.
ask that.
I can see
like
that.
in my opinion, he is like what I would compare, but not completely, but very comparable to how when Kemba was moved to Boston. I think people would view it like that from the initial jump, where
That's a
like
good comparison. Yeah.
people thought Kemba to Boston was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. And it's like it was to a certain degree, but it did not move the needle, you know? Like they still were a good team, but not good enough, you know. I think Bradley Beal would do that for any team he goes to, personally.
I like that. That's a good point. And yeah, I agree. I think the Wizards would win this deal. It's a bit of a you're sacrificing the potential future for right now. So I think that's the main preface behind it, if that's the right word. But yeah, I mean, RJ Barrett, like Ruben said, had a solid playoff run. You could say he was the second best player, damn near. But
As
not
I
gonna
said,
lie, y'all. With the World Cup coming up, we look at how a guy like Lauri Markkanen was able to really reinvent himself and assert himself. And when you're looking at this Canada squad, you know, we're going to talk, we got a whole episode dedicated to it later on, of course. But, you know, outside of Shea, I like RJ's chops as like being potentially not only just one of the main defenders, but cementing himself as one of like the better scoring options for this team. And I think being able to take that confidence and bring it back to whatever team he ends up on next year could be huge.
let's hope he commits first. I mean, that's always been Canada's problem is commitment. So, I mean, whenever you play summer basketball in the Olympics or the World Cup, you tend to come back with much more confidence. So let's hope it translates. And you know, if that trade happens, the Wizards are getting the best version of RJ Barrett.
I think he's going to, because I mean, Shea looks like he's for sure locked in. You know,
Yeah, he's locked in. I think Jamal might be locked in too.
I hope Jamal's the one where I'm like, ooh, him and Shea go. I like their chances. For sure.
I like their chances too. You have the best backcourt in with the World Cup. I don't care who USA has, unless they literally give you Steph Curry and
Dame.
Damian Lillard. They've got the best backcourt.
I
Yeah.
I
like
would
that.
agree.
I'm excited. All right, last one with the 76ers is Bradley Beal for Tobias Harris and a 2029 first round pick. This
Jesus
is
Christ.
very cheeks to say the least. Not gonna lie.
Cheeks
This
for
is where I would,
Washington.
yeah, this is where I would say
Yeah.
Washington loses that trade. Bradley
Yeah.
or Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris for me? Or what does he say?
Tobias Harris over me.
Me? It's honestly like the thing I think of when you say like that. Anything with Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris over me.
Man. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie though. Looking back at that Boston series, Tobias Harris was
He was
damn near.
cooking.
He was cooking. Yeah.
He was cooking though. Yeah, he
You-
was cooking.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
don't know,
It'll be
though.
interesting. I think Nick Nurse could get the most out of Bradley Beal on that roster. If
I
James
think so,
comes
too.
back, then I think that's
oh,
the trade you.
that's
worth
kind of a
looking into.
nasty backcourt.
James Harden, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid. You still got Tyrese Maxey.
Does that even work money wise though?
I mean, I don't think. Actually, no. How Tobias Harris is making near 28 million right now. Actually, no. Tobias is the highest paid player on the roster right now.
Yeah.
God damn.
And so I think Philly would have to give up a little bit more.
But
And
then
the fear of that is Tyrese Maxey being involved.
yeah,
in that,
your
but
team would just be so small. Because then you obviously got James running point, and you'd probably slot Beal into that 2 role. So then you're left with playing Tyrese Maxey as your 3, PJ as your 4, and then
Well-
now you're expecting Embiid to like pick up even more defensively.
Well, I mean, who Tyrese Maxey might not even start, but I mean, the idea was, they have Tyrese Maxey start under Nick Nurse. I mean, well, it's a tough one. I think Bradley Beal is a really good fit in Philly, but I just don't know if they have the assets that are.
I just think they'd be a little too small to really like hang with a Boston or a Milwaukee or a Denver really. I feel like it's almost like you're only really doing the move to be doing shit to an extent. Because I mean,
And Tobias Harris isn't a bad fit. I just
Oh,
think
yeah.
that they weren't schemed properly.
Tobias Harris is
schematically.
any other situation is a good like solid role player, but because he's making
Yeah.
so much money, that's why I think he could fulfill his role completely, which he did in this past playoff run. It's still never really gonna like unsour that taste of 40 M's or however much he's making.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Philly's problem is also the fact that James and Joel never show up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
whole different problem, honestly.
Yeah, whole different problem, and that's why a guy like Bradley Beal could fix that, right? But, yeah. I mean, we've also seen plenty of big threes that haven't worked in the past, like Brooklyn.
100%.
So, I don't know if that would work.
Either way, I mean, the NBA season's winding or officially over. Did y'all see those threads of the funniest moments? Like
I
people
don't
were
think-
saying
Oh,
this is like the
yeah.
funniest
Oh,
season
yeah.
of all
The
time.
funny season of all time, yeah. Dude, those
just
are
as like a way to
hilarious.
kind of wind down. Let just throw out some of the moments you guys really enjoyed this season.
When DeJounte Murray and Trae Young started clowning the Rockets when they were up by like 20 and they ended up losing that game.
Oh shoot!
That was so funny when DeJounte smacked Jabari Smith on the head or whatever.
That
That was
whole
fucking
whole
hilarious.
Atlanta season was overall a meme, man. Freaking crazy.
DR DeRozan screaming at the free throw line.
Hey, that's
Oh.
if we go when we go back, what happens if she isn't there at the free throw line? What happens if she goes to Miami and skips school?
Toronto loses in 4
Oh,
to Milwaukee and Giannis.
yep.
I'm kidding. They would have made the 7th seed, right?
Yes.
Then they would have lost to Boston in 5 games. Be real, man. That team was not good, dude. that team was hilarious.
I think the biggest meme one was definitely the Lakers and the Boston game. Like the whole camera
Oh,
coming
yeah.
out, and
Oh
then
yeah,
people doing
LeBron had the meltdown.
yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, that one was the one where it's like, yeah, that kind of put the cherry on top of that. This season of reffing has been quite cheeks, to say the least.
That was funny.
People bringing out
Man.
Eric Lewis's like family photos of them cheering for the Celtics.
Oh, that's crazy. And the burner account, bruh.
I don't believe the burner account. Not gonna lie.
Ooh. I mean, they believed it well enough to investigate. Something got to be fishy, bro.
True, but I also think that's just Adam Silver in the NBA still thinking that like people on Twitter aren't smart. You know what I mean? I
That's
think
true.
maybe it's just somebody tweeting it just to like potentially get them to look into that, and now it's just a big troll
Yeah.
thing. But I don't know if I fully believe that.
Funny moment in the locker room, and LeBron was like, "Let's keep going. Let's keep getting some more." And
Oh.
then it turned to Russ Westbrook, and he's like, "Let's just have fun, y'all. Let's just have
Yeah,
some fun."
an office
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
The office moment, bro. That was so funny. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
I would
UD's
say-
UD's retired. Did y'all see what Bam got him for his retirement?
No, what did he
He
get?
got him a rocking chair, like the old man on the porch, with things like this at the bottom, like a nice little rocking chair.
Oh my god.
I mean, overall,
gotta be
this
anything-
this season was big memes. Yeah.
Anything
Big moves
Dylan
for
Brooks
sure.
related.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was
That
hilarious.
could be another guy that's he's playing
Ni
for his
hao.
life. He's
Yeah.
playing
Get
for his
ready to learn
career.
Chinese.
He's playing for his career this August.
His career is over.
Yo, did you guys see the Paul Pierce thing when he told them that he brought an escort to the game with live stream with Kevin Garnett? You guys see that?
Is that
Oh
what?
man, how y'all doing? Yeah, he's like, hey, this is come here, I went on his website. We can hire a girlfriend for a day. Oh my god, Paul Pierce was wild, and KG was like, bro, we're working.
Paul Pierce is just he's the kind of guy you got to be careful with the mic in front of his man.
Oh, I got another funny one. When Pat Bev was like, yeah, we're all back when D'Lo got traded and then he got dealt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope Pat Bev ends up in a solid situation this offseason. I would love to see him
Me
go
too.
back to Minnesota for just keeping it a buck.
I would, yeah. I think him in Minnesota would be great.
Mm.
Like, it just worked, man. And I think Cat played great when he had Pat Bev out there. So,
Yeah, some guy being able to keep them accountable.
speaking of anything Dylan Brooks, remember the moment that Dylan Brooks didn't give Kyrie, or that Kyrie didn't take his jersey?
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
see it?
The jersey
No,
swap.
no, I'm good.
He's like, I'm good, bro. Like, I'm good. Like,
Hilarious.
oh man, there's so many good good moments this year.
Man, this is a good season overall, no doubt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to end it off, real quick, y'all, what is like one crazy thing you could see happening this offseason? Just anything over the top.
One that's not expected, like one that's not been rumored yet.
It could be just like something that'd be like headline news kind of thing.
Oh, Pascal Siakam getting traded.
Okay.
I see him getting dealt this year, or this offseason. Especially if Fred doesn't come back, which it's looking like it's not going to happen. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mine is I think DeJounte Murray could potentially be moved this offseason.
That's possible for sure.
That's possible. That's a good one.
I have I have two. One is more obvious. I do think Jaylen Brown is going to get dealt, honestly. Like there's a good
Ooh.
probability.
Oh.
That one's
Ooh, I
pretty
mean,
that's one's heavy in the talks, honestly. Like it's not a surprise, but my surprise would be like something that I don't think has been maybe realized enough is that if nothing happens with the Mavs, I think Kyrie might walk, and
Yeah.
I think that would result honestly later on in Luca leaving. That's my hot take.
Ooh.
Mm.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if they would have the retainer for Luca if there's nothing left for him after Kyrie, because Kyrie's kind of all he has left. I mean, Christian Wood, he has Christian Wood, but like, let's be
Christian was a
honest,
free
like,
agent this year.
Yeah.
yeah, and so I personally think Mavs could explode, or they could definitely like become the best team in the West next year. It's one or the other, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
True.
I mean, this offseason is about to start next week. We got the draft, I think 22nd, right?
Yeah. Excited.
It's gonna be a good
It's
time.
gonna be a good one.
But with that, this has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. Boys, y'all got anything to end us on?
Don't eat TNT food,
Good warning.
especially when you don't have anything in your stomach.
Oh yeah, you didn't have any protective layer.
Nothing, bro. I just had that straight greasy doo doo.
Oh, what about you, Chid?
I got nothing.
All right, with that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.